UFC 284 just happened, and it broke a massive streak. The fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev was a highly anticipated matchup. Both men were undefeated in the UFC. Both fighters had impressive records prior to their bout, with Volkanovski having won his last 22 bouts and Makhachev having won 17. This made the fight even more exciting as it featured two of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. The stakes were high, and the fans were eagerly awaiting to see who would come out on top. In the first round, Makhachev dominated with a series of powerful strikes that stunned his opponent. Volkanovski was able to come back in the second round, however, with some hard-hitting strikes and takedowns. In the third round, Makhachev continued to gain the upper hand with strong grappling techniques and a relentless ground attack. Ultimately, it was Makhachev's superior striking and groundwork that earned him the decision victory in this highly competitive bout.
Still the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world.
The fight had a great atmosphere as Volkanovski returned to his hometown of Perth to face off against the Russian. However, after the judges scored the fight in favor of Makhachev, Volkanovski felt that he had been robbed of a victory and took to social media to express his disappointment. Alexander Volkanovski was clearly not pleased with the outcome of his fight against Islam Makhachev at UFC 284. After the match, he took to Twitter to express his disappointment and accuse Makhachev of cheating. He did this by allegedly using illegal techniques during their bout. He also hinted that he felt robbed and accused the judges of taking away a massive moment from him. He went further during an appearance on Ariel Helwani's YouTube show, The MMA Hour, claiming he felt confident and comfortable in his belief that he had won rounds 2, 3, and 5. He called the judges bitches for taking away what should have been a huge moment for him. At the end of the day, it was Makhachev's superior striking and groundwork that earned him the decision victory. Despite feeling robbed of a victory, Volkanovski remained professional and accepted the decision with grace. It remains to be seen if these two will meet again in a rematch, but one thing is for sure: Alexander Volkanovski is not going down without a fight. Volka also suggested that Islam Makhachev may have gained an advantage by being heavier than him on the day of their fight. He noted that he had heard whispers about Makhachev weighing up to 83 kilograms, suggesting that this could be due to taking IVs before the fight. While he stopped short of accusing his opponent of cheating, this comment suggests that he had his doubts and felt that the weight difference could have given Makhachev an edge in their battle. But even though Islam's opponent didn't outright accuse him of cheating, others did. Dan Hooker didn't hold back his criticism of Islam Makhachev, calling him a cheating dog and mocking his attempt at circumventing the rules. He went on to say, "What kind of rookie mistake was that? Thinking you can hire a nurse to get your fluids injected and we won't find out," adding, "Sheesh. Plus, what's the USADA doing?" Dan Hooker was clearly outraged and thought it was unfair for Makhachev to be able to allegedly break the rules like that and get away with it. He also questioned why the USADA wasn't doing more to prevent these types of incidents from happening. Clearly, Dan Hooker's comments were a clear indication of his feelings toward Makhachev, and it looks like the rivalry between these two UFC fighters is only just beginning. It will be interesting to see how this feud plays out in the future. Although Makhachev has denied any wrongdoing in the aftermath of his fight, he could still face a 2-year suspension from the sport if found guilty of using an IV infusion before or during the fight. If proven, this would be a violation of USADA's anti-doping rules and result in major consequences for Makhachev. It remains to be seen if the allegations against Makhachev are true, but one thing is for sure: this controversy will definitely add an interesting twist to what was already a riveting fight between two of the best lightweights in the sport. Whether or not he manages to clear his name and retain his title, only time will tell. Therapeutic IV use was once quite common in MMA, but has since been effectively banned thanks to the UFC's partnership with USADA. However, welterweight fighter Phil Rowe claims that it is still possible to receive medical clearance for IV use if needed. So it will be interesting to see how this controversy unfolds. It's a real conundrum, isn't it? Did Islam Makhachev really get an IV after the weigh-ins and prior to the fight at UFC 284? Dan Hooker, a friend and teammate of featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski sure seems to think so, but Chael Sonnen is not convinced. He thinks there's a whole lot more to this story than meets the eye. First off, where would Makhachev have gotten the IV, and how could he do it without anyone noticing? According to Sonnen, someone who witnessed the procedure would have had to sneak into Makhachev's room and carry out their work with a coat hanger. That's quite a tall order for someone who hasn't even been identified yet to pull off. Sonnen also pointed out that if this mystery nurse actually exists, they'd be in serious trouble. Not only did they break the rules of USADA and risk taking Makhachev's license away, but they would have committed a HIPAA violation. And there's another thing to consider. What are the motives of whoever fed this info to Hooker? Sonnen thinks it's possible they're trying to gain favor with the hangman, and that might just be true, but that's not the only controversy to emerge out of the fight. Despite the loss, Alexander Volkanovski is still the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC, and it's easy to understand why. He has several impressive wins under his belt, including a victory over former champ Max Holloway for the featherweight title. However, Islam Makhachev isn't too happy about Volka holding on to his #1 spot, and he believes that his win over Volka should warrant a change in the rankings. Makhachev has even gone so far as to allege discrimination against Russian athletes for not receiving the same justice in their fights, citing examples of Magomed Ankalaev and Petr Yan, who have both been on the receiving end of controversial decisions in their last outings. It will be interesting to see if he can fight his way up the ladder and eventually become the pound-for-pound #1 fighter, or if Volkanovski will retain his spot for the foreseeable future. Either way, this rivalry is sure to make for some great fights in the future. The question on everyone's minds right now is, who will Islam Makhachev fight next? Well, that's a tricky one, but after his impressive win at UFC 284, it looks like he has some exciting options ahead of him. First up is former interim champion Dustin Poirier. Not only would this matchup be an absolute barn burner, but it would give us a chance to see how Makhachev stacks up against one of the most popular and proven fighters in the lightweight division. Then there's Justin Gaethje. Gaethje is looking for another shot at UFC gold, but if Makhachev can put on an impressive performance against the ultra-durable Gaethje, then it could be him who's getting a title shot. Last but not least, there's Charles Oliveira. A rematch with Makhachev would certainly be interesting after their first fight ended in a stunning submission defeat. Oliveira is one of the top talents in the division, so if he can manage to get past his first fight with Makhachev, then he could be well on his way to trying for UFC gold. Who do you think Islam's next opponent will be? See you in the next one.